Hello, everybody, and welcome to Xbox2+1, your premier Patreon exclusive, timed exclusive show all about Xbox with various guests from the Xboxy community. This is the 30th episode on airing live on patreon.com/XB2 on May 29th, 2025.
June yet, Jez. Not June yet.
It's not June
I know
yet.
you want it to be.
Yeah,
I know you want it to be really badly.
Yeah. June's in my head for a variety of reasons right now, but we'll get to that. But we are joined today by an illustrious, exclusive VIP guest of the XB2 universe, Miles DOMPIER of Ilphonic Games. Hi there, Miles. How's it going, buddy?
Whoa, am I Xbox's biggest exclusive right now, or what?
Oh, snap. You went there. You went there.
Oh, what is up, gamers? How's it going?
Yeah, how's it going, man? It's really awesome to get you back on. I think, it's funny because when I said to Rand, oh, we got Miles next week, Rand was like, didn't we have Miles like a few weeks ago? But it was like a year ago or over a year ago. The last time
Dude, has it been that long?
It has been that long.
Oh
it's
my god!
It's like time has become this weird abstract concept. Like I reconnected with a friend recently, who I hadn't spoken to for quite some time for just because we fell out of touch. And then she was like, "Oh, it's my birthday tomorrow." I was like, "Hang on a sec. Have we been talking for a year already?" Because I remember it being your birthday like yesterday. It's like I really feel like the pandemic just completely broke the flow of time or something. I have no idea. Does anything even exist anymore? Is this as reality just quantum break or something? Oh, never mind. Well, let's not get too far into philosophy. But we're not here to talk about the metaphysics of time and space. We're here to talk about something far more simple. Well, perhaps not as simple, but we're here to talk about Xbox and the gaming industry at large. But how have you been, Miles? How you doing, man?
I've been really good. Speaking of time being unreal, I've almost been with Ilphonic for 2 years, which is still wild to think about because it feels like only yesterday I was making the rounds on Xbox Chatterdays, showing up on Xbox 2 with you lovely gents, and now, yeah, I've been on the game dev side for almost 2 years, and it's just been a blink of an eye, a blur. It's so wild to think about, but I've been really good. I'm more settled in my role. I've got to ship a few games at this point. So yeah, things have been really good. I'm excited about where the industry's heading, despite some of the I guess turbulence, if you want to call that, and of the last several years.
Yeah, it's we've got one of your games running on screen right now. In fact, this is footage from Killer Clowns from Outer Space. How's that game doing?
So that's been a lot of fun. Like, this is a very special project for me because one of the first, actually, I think the very first horror movie I ever watched as a literal child was Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And I remember watching this absurd fever dream movie of a child and being horrified. And I think that kind of warped my brain. And from that moment on, I became a full-fledged horror sicko. So I owe a lot of my brain chemistry to Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So to be a part of shipping this game has been awesome. And yeah, we're getting ready to do a big anniversary update on June 3rd. And, I want to give a huge shout out to my team because there's been a lot of work that's gone into that. But for me, it's been really awesome because I've also got to be a big part of shaping what that update looks like as well. So I love the game. I still play regularly with the squad, and I'm excited for hopefully some new peeps to jump in with this anniversary update.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. The Killer Clowns from Outer Space obviously is available on PC and Xbox and PlayStation, I think, as well. It's
Can you say PlayStation on the show? Is that legal?
We can. Rand says it all the time. Rand loves PlayStation. It's all what Rand's about.
Is it also available on the Nintendo Switch? I believe. I think that's how they say it.
Nintendo. I mean, this will bring you joy. It doesn't bring me joy to say this, but it'll bring you joy to hear that, unfortunately, as of now, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game, is not on Nintendo Switch.
But there is a new Nintendo console coming out next week. Is there a possibility that maybe Killer Clowns might find its way scaring future victims on the Nintendo Switch too.
All I can say on that front is I would love that. But that's all I can say.
It's classified.
Okay. I mean, of course. We would love to do
PR
it.
line, sorry, but yeah, I would love it. I would love to play it on Switch too, because I got my pre-order locked in, Rand. Let's go. Launch day.
I bet you do. I bet you do. And you know what? Does it surprise you that I don't have one locked in?
I thought maybe over the last couple of years you would have gotten some taste, but it appears that's not the case.
Here we go. This is the Miles I remember from Xbox Chatter days, ladies and gentlemen. You know,
we have fun. We have fun.
We miss you in the podcast space. You know,
yeah, I've
not
only
just
done
being
a
like an
handful of
Xbox
podcasts.
podcast, but just podcasting in general. You know, Chatter days, the earlies. You'd always hit me up and be like, "Hey, can you be ready to go at 8 a.m. on Saturday?" And I'd be like, "Miles, you're killing me here, man. Killing me."
But you
8 a.m. on a
the alarm
Saturday.
and you'd get up, bro. And that's
I get up because it was you. Because there's not that many people I would get up that early for to do a podcast, but Miles was one of them. Oh man, how long did you do Xbox Chatter days on the Windows Central channel?
Man, we did well over 100 episodes, so it was several years. 2 or 3. It was a while. I mean, but again, a blink in the grand scheme of things. But
you got,
like it was going for a few years.
Yeah, those there's still tons of those videos up on the YouTube channel, which and I still get reports from Google about the podcast Xbox Chat Days because I'm like linked to that account, and it's still like it still gets traffic. Like even now, even
still doing some numbers. Let's go.
Even though there hasn't been an episode in forever, so people really love that show. I get asked about it quite a lot, but
I do too, and I keep telling people maybe there's a world where I figure out a way to do it in a way that makes sense and also keeps me sane. But yeah, I do miss it. I do miss making the rounds and talking about games because it's that's why I got invested in the industry, because I just love video games. So
yeah,
I appreciate that people like to listen to me ramble about games.
Yeah, I know that feel, and it is a lot of work juggling, podcasting and also doing work. I'm actually in the process of breaking some news about Xbox right now. I was in the middle of the show. Just
breaking some news about Xbox. You normally do that, don't you?
Yeah, I do, but usually not during when I'm podcasting. And we committed to the show, and I have to do it because the wonderful people at Patreon are so gracious in their support of us. And also, we already moved this once because we did plan to do it on Tuesday, but then I messed up my own timings. So I didn't want to mess Miles around again because he's a busy guy. Unlike Rand, who's just chilling all day playing.
That's not true.
The latest sad dad simulator on his PlayStation. But yeah. But yeah, I mean it's Xbox Showcase season, and I thought now would be a good time to get the band back together to discuss exactly what we hope to see from the Xbox show, and also discuss some of the recent news. There's even more turmoil in the industry. I suppose we'll talk about some of this stuff again on Friday, but EA shutting down another studio. That's like par for the course with EA now. I feel like they shut down more studios than they actually release games these days, and at least if the game isn't FIFA. And then just everything else that's got ongoing with all the stuff. So I don't know, where do you guys want to start? What have you been playing recently? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I want to talk to Miles because I said this before we started the show. Last time I talked to Miles, I was in a party with him because him and his crew were playing Diablo 4. My bad. And I remember jumping in the party with him because I was playing solo, but he was playing with the boys. And I wanted somebody to talk to kind of help me not focus on the mind-numbingly dreariness of Diablo gameplay. So I was like, let me talk to Miles for a little bit. So I haven't talked to him for a while. So, what have you been playing? Since then, like, what has been your favorite game that's come out since then? I know that a couple years here, but I'm sure there's probably something like, what is like for me, for example, like Expedition 33, right? Blew me away in every way you could possibly imagine. Where it's going to be my game of the year this year. I can't imagine anything breaking that. But if you had to look in the last couple years, you have your single player gaming, and I know how much you love multiplayer gaming with the boys. So what's what are you loving right now, Miles?
Yeah, there's been so much, and it's one of those things where even though I'm working in game dev, I'm still spending a lot of my free time trying to absorb and play as much as possible. So I'm definitely guilty of starting a lot more games than I finish because of that. Expedition 33, I am currently playing. I haven't seen the end, and somehow it has not been spoiled for me. But that is one of those games that you touched on where it completely took me by surprise. Like the production and more importantly, the writing of Expedition 33. It's a very adult game with adult themes. And I feel like in that genre, that kind of classic turn-based, inspired by classic Japanese RPGs, that style traditionally leans into a lot of cliches for storytelling, which even if the game's fun, the story itself feels less important or impactful because of that. But Expedition 33, especially that opening, like one of the most powerful openings since the original The Last of Us.
That prologue, though, that music, though,
it hits and you're sucked in and you want to know what's happening, what is going on in this world, how is this real, like what is this mysterious paintress off in the distance, and why are people dying at age 34? And the game does such a good job.
Almost like it should be a horror game, like Killer Clowns.
Yeah, and so I'm loving that. I have not beat that. Since we last talked, obviously Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, that was one of those experiences that, again, I had high expectations for it, but they somehow managed to improve on one of the most foundational games ever made in big, meaningful ways, and just, again, delivered this experience that just kept expanding the more you played, and you can run through New Game Plus several times and still find new things. So yeah, From Software continues to hit. I'm really interested to see what they do with Night Rain. I'm going to be checking that out, and I'm really interested to see what they do with the Dusk Bloods, which is it. These are two multiplayer focused From Software joints, which is controversial. As you touched on, I'm a big multiplayer fan, so I love it. I want any excuse to play From Software games with the boys. So I'm really excited to see. And I played the network test for Night Rain and really liked it. Monster Hunter Wilds, from a tech standpoint, really, really loved that. The cinematics in Monster Hunter Wilds, shout out to that team because they just cooked. There are so many moments where you have a giant monster silhouetted against the night sky with lightning cracking in the background, and there's all these flashy particle effects and all of these environmental details popping off, and it's just so much stimulus. And Capcom continues to demonstrate their tech. Obviously, there were some performance problems for a handful of people with Wilds, but I really liked Wilds. I'm excited to see that game grow, but spent a lot of time, good 100 hours with Monster Hunter Wilds, and I would like an excuse to spend another 100, but yeah, that's a small taste. I also finished the Dark Ages recently, which I really liked. I thought no spoilers, but I thought the final act of that was amazing. It's one of those games where the more I played, the better it got. Kind of a slow start, and you're like heavier and slower than Doom Eternal, which is kind of an adjustment. But once everything clicked and I was parrying and rushing down enemies and getting all the new arsenal, like the God, what's the name of the gun that crushes a skull and shoots the bones? The Pulverizer,
I think it's called. Or one of the, because like each gun has like two variants, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's Ravager and Pulverizer. Like
which one? Which one? The one that the tighter, one of those. The tighter one, and then when you have it fully maxed out, it shoots out blue skulls, and the enemies drop ammo. So you basically just hold down the trigger because the enemies are dropping ammo for it, so you never run out of ammo. It's awesome.
And then the cannon shot, where you could charge up and just detonate essentially like a mini nuke every time.
Chain shot.
Yeah. So I love the new weapons in Doom: The Dark Ages. I loved the shield. I like the Captain America flare, so I really like that.
So I haven't really talked that much about my feelings of Doom: The Dark Ages. We were supposed to on the last episode of Xbox 2 on Friday, but my internet decided to not work. An hour into the show, my internet just died, and it died for like 5 hours.
Trying to silence your thoughts.
Yeah, so I hadn't even talked about Doom. So, I'll talk about it more this Friday, but yeah, just like a quick thing. Eternal's still my favorite. I really like the run and gun aspect of that game. I liked the setup more. The story I found way more intriguing. I felt like the level layouts were better, and I didn't mind the whole like platform jumping. Like in that game, it had a lot of I don't want to use like parkour elements, right? Where there were large areas of space you had to get through, where you had to climb and then use the pole to jump. I know that game was very divisive among the Doom hardcore fans who enjoyed 2016. And then here's Eternal, and here's this Doom: The Dark Ages. I will say, once the game kind of gets through tutorializing you about the new weapons and the melee and the shield, I did feel like the game got a lot better and hit its stride. But the shield throw, eventually, I was like, I don't really care about the shield throw. Shield dash, however, was always fun to use.
Oh yeah, just lunging 500 feet forward with your shield.
Lunging 500, but eventually I was just like, I don't really like the shield throw, but I did enjoy Doom Dark Ages. I think I just enjoyed Doom Eternal like way more. Yeah,
I'm kind of conflicted because I feel like what I like about the quote unquote new trilogy is that each one has its own different feel. Yeah. And I would say I like Dark Ages probably more than 2016. But I'm kind of torn when it comes to Eternal because I like the parkour as well. Like I love the mobility of Eternal, and I love that it felt really fast, and the arenas felt like a loop, and you were kind of encouraged to run this loop around. Whereas they said in the marketing material for Dark Ages is more of like stand and fight, stand your ground type of combat, which as a big Gears fan I can appreciate. But it was a different feel, and like you said, it for me it took a while to get in that mindset of, okay, I need to just rush down and then use the melee weapons. Like the flail, I really loved. So I did like the shield bash, and I did like the melee as a way to kind of mix up the combat compared to Eternal in 2016.
Yeah, it's great because I appreciate it doing something different. Because sometimes franchises don't take risks that often. Usually, especially with how long game development takes and how expensive these games are, once they usually find a thing that works, they stay with it, right? Because they've got so much money riding on it. We're like, I don't know if we can change this. And Internal was such a huge success that you would feel like any other developer would be like, no, we're just going to run that back. Because we're
going to keep the exact same engine.
Because it worked.
We're going to keep the same combat. We're just going to change up the environments.
But they decided to change things up. They did a prequel story, so the Doomslayer plays a little differently, and with that always comes the chance that people don't like it as much, or you turn people off. So I appreciate id for what they did for this, where each game is kind of its own thing. So let me ask you this, like you being part of the dev community now, and you had been gamer forever doing podcasts, when you play a game, are you looking at the game differently? Like, whereas before you're just playing it for fun, and then sure, you do a podcast and maybe you talk about how you felt about it. But now that you're making games, are you looking at the games you play in a different way to help you understand your job? Has that happened at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I felt like I've always been pretty critical of games in terms of dissecting what makes them click. And I feel like I've tried, previously before going dev side, having a good understanding of what development takes and kind of the realities of mechanics and art direction and cinematics. So now I feel like there are definitely things where I have a much greater appreciation for, because now that I've been in Unreal 4, Unreal 5, actually messed around inside of game engines with mechanics and like building environments. Like I definitely have a strong connection when I see a cool mechanic, especially when I have never seen before in a game. Now I have a much greater appreciation for like what went into not only like coming up with the idea, because sometimes the idea is easier than the execution itself, and anybody can have an idea, but to be able to take an idea, actually go through the production steps to get it in game and have it feel and look good, I definitely have a much greater appreciation for that now that I've seen what actually the steps that are involved to do something incredibly basic in Unreal.
Yeah. Man, like so with you going from hey, like I'm a gamer, we do the podcast to going to work on games, like was there a learning curve for you to kind of get to where you're at now? I'm very curious, you know, because as someone who's just like you, is like I just play games. And what I wonder how the shift was to being like, okay, I'm just a lover of games, but now I make games. Was that a difficult process, or just something that like you'd always kind of been wanting to do, so you kind of prepared yourself for it?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely something I've, historically always wanted to do. As a child, I used to make platformers, like primitive, like kind of not quite Flash, but Flash adjacent game engines. I used to make a bunch of platformers as a kid. And so that's kind of where I got my start there. And then as I got a little bit older, like I would gravitate towards games like Little Big Planet or Project Spark, or those like game engine games where they take basically the building blocks of creating a game and gamify it a bit. So I was really into those for a while. And then I transitioned to, the industry side and talking to developers, talking to a bunch of developers with different expertise about, what their day-to-day looks like, what goes into making a map, for example. And so in my time in the industry, I had a lot of really good conversations about kind of the reality of what it takes to make a game. And that kind of solidified my long-term goals, which is I've always wanted to be more, I've always wanted to be closer to the process of bringing games to people. So I work over at Ilphonic as the social media manager, but we're pretty small and tight knit, so we get to wear a bunch of hats. And over the last couple of years, I've done a lot of extracurriculars to understand like Unreal. So a lot of the Unreal stuff I've been learning, talking to my team, talking to our designers, and really like immersing myself in when somebody's working on a new stage or someone's working on a new character model or a new weapon. I'm hitting them up and I'm, having the conversation, learning from them. And so for me, that's been awesome to really like have context and understanding for the tools. And then in my free time, I've been tinkering with my own projects as well in Unreal to like get an even further grasp of like what it takes to create the whole experience of a game.
Okay. So I guess, we kind of need to get into it because of, what you used to do in the podcasting space, Xbox related, Xbox focused. And, we can plant all this squarely at your feet, the blame of Xbox changing its business model, because Miles is gone and Phil saw that and was like, you know what? Miles ain't here no more. I'm changing it up. There's like no one to call me out. So
I mean, what's funny? I just want to shout myself out here because even though I left, I still got mana on Xbox. Okay, and I'm not going to take I'm not going to take sole responsibility for it, but I will take 65% credit for that. So you're welcome. At least we got that.
That's a lot of credit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to take that much credit. I think that's fair. It's a fair amount of credit. Just discredit Xbox, their whole team, discredit Square Enix and the developers of the Mana games, and I'll just gobble up a bunch.
So we also got we're also getting Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD.
Yeah.
Just saw the other day. So it
Are you
does seem like
you
Square
done?
Enix is a bit closer to Xbox these days.
Are you done writing your article?
Almost. We're getting there.
Almost.
I'm just
Okay.
sitting
Oh,
here. I'm just sitting here listening to you guys while hammering my keyboard. And once I publish this, we can potentially talk about the topic.
yeah.
It's so annoying that this all happened at the same time.
So what I was trying to get with Miles is Xbox is in a different position from when you were podcasting to now, in a completely different position where, you know, they're fully multi-platform. I mean, there's some debate depending on who you asked. Some games will be timed exclusive. Other people say everything's day one multi-plat. And although they really haven't announced anything for the Switch 2 yet, I would imagine they will be eventually. I think that more has to do with Xbox not really getting a lot of dev kits from the Switch 2, because I heard they were very kind of strict with those, or they didn't hand them out that much to many people. So
yeah, I think a lot of teams are still getting their dev kits like now. So it's definitely
so
not
how do you
something that
feel?
gave out to a lot of folks.
How do you feel about the switch up? How do you feel about Xbox going from exclusives to being basically the biggest third-party publisher, but also with an ecosystem of their own, something that has never happened in the video game industry before? What are your full thoughts on that? Because I know that's a lot to kind of cram in there, right?
It really is. And it's been fun for me to kind of sit on the sidelines outside of the podcast space, because if I was still on Xbox Chatter Days, we'd be talking about this every single week, the same kind of idea of, you know, what is the future of Xbox? Because they've had moments where they say, okay, we're gonna try to bring 4-ish games to PlayStation and other platforms, and just test the waters, see how they do. We're gonna start with 4. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually, there's no red lines. And most of our games are going to go to other platforms. We're going to make weird exceptions here and there, like South of Midnight, for example. But I think it's clear that they're having financial success with some of these experiments. Sea of Thieves, I think, is a great example of one that did incredibly well and made a lot of money. And with an ongoing game, a game as a service style game like Sea of Thieves, it probably only helped benefit the team and the content they can pump out. So then you have the conversation of like, okay, what about my investments in the platform? Do I need to be worried about, buying a console? What is all that going to look like? I think those are fair questions to ask as we move towards a world where Xbox clearly isn't as interested in selling hardware. That being said, they have an audience of 30, 40 plus million people invested in the hardware. So they're still making a lot of money. And last time I kind of looked into it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a majority of their Game Pass subs are also on console as well. So a huge component of their financial revenue is on the console side of things. So they can't really just pull the rug out and say we're not doing hardware at all anymore. We're only going to publish games, and maybe that's a timeline where they would love to do that, but they can't take the financial hit of losing.
Yeah, I mean, cloud's not ready yet, right? So like, if you were to be like, oh well, we have the cloud thing, and people could play their games there, so it's like it's still too early really to exit hardware completely.
And we might have, again, this has been the pipe dream for the tech bros for a long time, is the cloud future. You don't need any device. You can just stream. We've seen it with movies, and we're there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nobody has a Blu-ray player anymore. I mean,
and you've seen it even more with music. I mean, who doesn't subscribe to Spotify? Who buys CDs, right?
Yeah, you have these different categories where you have the average person who has no physical media whatsoever on when it comes to music. Then you have the purists who go the vinyl route, the collector's route. They want the premium experience. They buy the premium product. They buy the premium vinyl. And then, I don't know, maybe there's a world where that's what like the console gaming market becomes, this kind of like niche, purist, premium thing where it still exists. It's still supported. You can buy and enjoy things in this specific way. But the reality is people just want what's the cheapest and most convenient way to play video games, and sometimes buying a console and spending $80 on a game isn't that. And so I think Microsoft is trying to navigate all of these changes in customer behavior, because I think that's really what's driving a lot of this, is them trying to be proactive with how we engage with media. And if cloud gaming gets to a point where you can pick up a controller and you can play something and there's no detrimental feeling for that experience, it'll be a lot more accepted. But right now, it's not there, and anyone who's been playing video games feels that. So you might bring in people who've never engaged with video games via that road, but you are not selling people who are accustomed to a specific feeling with cloud gaming. And so, yeah, it's been really interesting. I'm personally not, I've spoke on this previously. It's not the biggest deal for me if a game goes to another platform. I get the draw of exclusives. I also feel like exclusives as a customer they're not really in our favor, generally speaking. And that's my personal opinion, is like, we don't typically benefit from exclusives as a player necessarily. So the fact that some of these companies are reevaluating that, I don't have a problem with that. I also have a library of thousands of Xbox games that I would like to keep and be able to keep playing. So it's really been fascinating, and I'm curious to see kind of like what the next quote unquote gen for Xbox looks like, because this gen has been, we're just tearing all the walls down and we're kind of resetting a foundation for what comes next. And we're trying to rip off Band-Aids and get people mentally and emotionally prepared for what we do next.
Yeah. What, like, if you had to take a guess, what do you think is next?
AI, baby, AI gaming. No.
Okay.
You don't want AI. You don't want to just open up Copilot and say, "Hey, generate me an AI slot video game, please," and it'll just do it for you.
It'll be like my Facebook group chat where it's like my dumbass friends are like, "Look at this! I made this guy do this." I'm like, "Oh boy." We've seen it with, as it gets easier and easier to make things. I get the appeal of saying, I want to play Dark Souls, but it's this theme. And then AI just kind of generates this curated experience for just you. I get that appeal, but I have a lot of skepticism about that experience being enjoyable in any meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, if it happens, I think it's going to be a long time before it's truly something high quality, but it does feel like there's some kind of shift going on in the industry right now. I mean, there is a big sort of rush away from AAA, at least in the sort of core community. We're seeing like more creative, innovative, fast-moving games from studios like your own penetrating the market in a greater cadence. We saw EA just shut down Cliffhanger Games and cancelled, was it Black Panther or Iron Man? Black Panther, right? It's kind of crazy, like the upheaval we're seeing in the industry right now. And I don't know what the next big thing, the big shift in gaming looks like. Like when we were kids, right? I remember when I was a kid and I got my PS1. I remember just sitting there with that 3D dinosaur on the PlayStation 1 demo disc and just being in awe at the idea of 3D. I was like, oh my God,
how is it?
That dinosaur is fully 3D.
We were kind of spoiled because we saw all of these advancements happen so rapidly. So we went from NES to Super Nintendo to PlayStation 1 and 3D graphics and Nintendo 64 and then the PS2 and GameCube. All of that is within like 10 years. Like, so we saw these huge, massive, monumental leaps, and now we're not necessarily getting that same visual feedback when it comes to a new gen. So yeah, like you said, I think that's leading people to experiment more with game ideas. And I hope we see more smaller scale, lower cost experiments from teams where they say, here's just a good idea. And instead of being like, this cultural 100-hour moment that takes 8 years to make. Like, not every game can be that, and I feel like for a while, a lot of the big publishers were trying to make every game that moment, which is everyone's battling for time now in a way we've never seen before, because not only is it video games, but like social media, video platforms, there are all these other things that are pulling people away from playing video games now.
Yeah, there's so many distractions. It's like like your group chat, right? With people making AI bullshit, scrolling around, not playing games. I mean,
Yeah, we didn't have TikTok when you were playing Super Mario World.
no. Yeah, it's a wild time, man. It does feel a bit like a lot of these platform holders are kind of sort of struggling between, should we double down on what we have, or should we try and find the next big thing? Like we saw companies try and dabble with the metaverse and VR, and like even Satya Nadella a couple of years ago was like, "Oh yeah, we are ready for the metaverse." Like every bloody speech they did, they were talking about metaverse, and that who talks about the fucking metaverse now? Literally nobody. Now it's all AI. AI. Every bloody app I've got has an AI button in it. Microsoft just released their own Copilot for gaming bullshit, which isn't available in the UK, by the way. So I haven't had time to test it myself. But it's just Copilot with a skin and like a new prompt on it. That's like a default prompt, which is like, pretend you're a gaming assistant. You know, there's this, it feels like the .com bubble all over again. And I think it's kind of born of publishers and platform holders feeling like they don't know where the growth's coming from. Like, it's like, how do we grow? How do we grow in a finite universe? Again, it could potentially devolve into a wider criticism of, you know, capitalism and stagnation in general. It feels like every industry is kind of going through this. Where do we grow? Where do we get the capital investment from? And AI just feels like such a bubble right now, and it's vacuuming up a lot of the venture capital, which previously might have gone to gaming, you know, or you know, other innovative apps and solutions or stuff like that. It feels like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts are now established as the de facto scrolling app. So like, no, there's no venture capital left for apps and stuff like and services like that. It feels like gaming being stagnant for users has dried up a lot of the venture capital for gaming opportunities. And now it just feels like every day there's a new AI company with some new AI solution claiming to be the next big thing. Meanwhile, gamers are like working so hard to reject these things. Like I was browsing Reddit the other day, and someone replied to a comment. It was on the Warhammer 40k subreddit. I've been really into Warhammer 40k recently. And someone replied to a comment with an AI generated meme. Just a harmless AI, you know, just a harmless comment, nothing controversial. It had like 1,000 downvotes and replies like AI, yeah, AI slop, bullshit AI, get AI out of here. It's like this huge backlash against it. So it feels like we're living in this double universe where like corporations are trying to tell us what we want, and we're like, actually, no, we don't want this, you know?
And I think it's important to be vocal about that because, you know, I'm not going to talk to any specific company necessarily, but as an artist, you know, let me stick my pinky in the artiste. I feel like art should be reserved for human expression, you know, and I feel like these companies, when they look at AI so cynically, they're trying to take even that away. And so we've already seen jobs kind of destroyed, and we've seen a lot of, you know, industries destroyed by this kind of like push to take and reduce costs and get something good enough that works well enough that they can justify cutting X number of employees or whatever the situation might be. But then that's just taking another way for humans to make a living. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from, is like, okay, you've taken this, and now AI, a lot of people were seeing take a stand and say, okay, like this is not something we are willing to give up. Like if we can't create art anymore, then like what is human existence? Again, more of like a heady metaphysical.
That is quite a
is.
question. What is human existence? Says Miles.
No, it's a serious question, and it kind of does. I mean, we talk about these things in the context of gaming, right? And you know, Miles talked about art should be the basis of human expression, but corporations and shareholder-led corporations, they have no sort of they have no responsibility or no incentive really to care about any of that stuff. They have no incentive to care about the wider ills they foist on society with their greed and profit-seeking behavior. And through the lens of gaming, you could think of like oil companies. They don't really care about the carbon emissions and the potentiality as to rapidly change the climate and then devastate ecosystems and stuff like that, forest fires. I got a friend in Canada right now who's like constantly being served evacuation notices because everything's on fire, right? Oil companies don't care about any of that stuff. And, they don't have an incentive to really care about that stuff anyway, So like from a gaming perspective and gaming point of view, if a company like EA, for example, is making shitloads of profits, despite being voted the worst company in America multiple times, despite having such a negative perception amongst people who like are really into the hobby, like core gamers, so-called core gamers like us. People just generally have a negative opinion of EA for whatever reason. But whether it's how they've treated Dragon Age or BioWare or shutting down studios left, right, and center. I know people who are still mad about EA shutting down Pandemic Studio. The Mercenaries devs. That's what they were called, right? Pandemic.
Just wait for the reaction when they shut down BioWare finally.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about it like it's definitely going to happen, but it's like,
I mean, it feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels that way. Yeah, it really does. And the thing is, it doesn't matter because they're not beholden to core gamers. Their only thing they're beholden to is money, and people are giving them money hand over fist in FIFA Ultimate Team and whatever other games they've got going on. So
you saw what that former BioWare writer said, right? That how EA views people like us.
Yeah, he said that nerds will turn up for an RPG or something like that, right?
Yeah, like the basically like the gamers in the dungeons or whatever he said. It's like they'll always show up for RPGs. The trolls in the dungeon will always show up for this stuff, and it's like
absolutely insane, insanely out of touch. And it just goes to show like the delta between the corporate mindset and the art and the artiste, and that's why I think indie devs are thriving right now, because they don't have that bureaucratic oversight that's being like, okay, well, you want to add this feature, then it's going to have to cost this much money, and we don't even know if it's going to, get engagement, so we need to do an engagement analysis or whatever, and all this stuff. And all that bureaucracy, that costs money too. So it's like all that bureaucracy that you're spending to try and figure out if something's fun or not. That could be, dev hours, not something else. And I think the Expedition 33 dev spoke to this to some degree, where they're like, we couldn't have made Expedition 33 under Ubisoft because of the bureaucracy involved with getting a pitch up the chain and approved and stuff like that. So like when it, in a roundabout way, what I'm saying is like, at the end of the day, if the masses and masses of people decide that AI is fine and that AI gaming is fine, it's gamers like us who get orphaned in that scenario potentially. But increasingly, I feel like as dev tools get democratized and platform access gets democratized. Like, it's much easier to upload a game on Steam than it is to get a game certified on Xbox, for example, which is something I think needs to change. Hopefully there'll be indie devs who step up to sort of keep delivering on the hobby that we love, even if the Zoomers and the Gen Alpha, well, it's not even Zoomers now. Zoomers are like pushing 30 at this point. We really need to think about Gen Alpha. And Gen Alpha, yeah, seriously, like Gen Z is like, they're getting old. If you're Gen Z, listen to this. I'm sorry.
Gen Z's having back pain already?
Yeah, Gen Z's getting the back pain coming in now. It's Gen Alpha that are growing up with AI, and they're the ones who will be like, oh, AI's, they won't even think about the impact that AI has on creators and all that kind of stuff. They'll just be like, oh, they'll just be happy with their, well, even Skibbity Toilet is like made by a human, but it's like, you get further
exactly,
into it. Like Gen Alpha is like, they are cooked because they're just going to grow up with this universe of AI slop, not knowing if anything online is real, or even then, like you said, Miles, what is real?
What is
real?
I mean, yeah, we went down a
I know this is definitely a rabbit hole because I read an article recently. I'm a big reader, right? I think anybody that listens to the show knows. I was reading this article about how students in college and younger, like high school they can't read. And it's because...
Was it the one talking about how they can't read like a third person perspective?
Well, no, I didn't see that one, but it's basically like they'll have it read to them. Like ChatGPT will read it out. Like these kids, they don't do their own homework now. They'll get assignments and they'll just have ChatGPT do it for them. And they'll get angry when... So like one of the teachers was like, okay, well, we're going to write these essays in class and you have to handwrite them. And like the entire class was like, we're not doing that. It's not fair. Like I need to use ChatGPT. It's a tool. And I should be able to use ChatGPT as you would use a calculator to solve a math problem. So that's like
remember all the teachers saying, you won't always have a calculator on you.
Yeah.
So I mean, technically we do because we've got a mobile phone with calculator, right?
So apparently younger kids can't read and they're not trying to read because they can just have their phone read it for them.
Yeah.
Speak to them. They're not really doing their assignments because everybody's using AI to do the assignments for them. Like I was reading this and they interviewed one of these college kids for it. And he basically was like, yeah, I would go to ChatGPT and I would say, this is what I want. And it would spit it out. And then I would take what ChatGPT spit it out and I would go to another AI and tell it to take this and then change it in this way and write it in this format. And then I would take what it spit out and then take it to a third AI and tell it to redo it like this in this format. And he's like, it gets out it doesn't get caught by, the tools looking to determine whether or not it's AI. So he's like, they're using like multiple AIs to like do their projects to kind of get around, because they're trying to like some software to detect it. But like, yeah, basically it's like nobody's doing real work in college. It's all just AI. And it's like, man, that's going to be a problem in the future, don't you think? I don't know.
I'll give a real world example of tech rotting my brain. I used to cover all of Southern California for one of my jobs. I was a sales manager. I drove around to all these different territories, all these different places. I had hundreds of accounts. So for years, I would type in the name of the place into GPS and travel there and use GPS to get there because a lot of the time it was a place I'd never been. After doing that for years, my sense of direction is cooked. Like I have to rely on GPS now to get places I've already been because I'm like, oh yeah, I wasn't really paying it. Like my brain recognized that I did not need to retain this information, so it didn't bother. As soon as it was in GPS, my brain turned off. It wasn't engaging with that information. And now my wife is always giving me a hard time because I have such a terrible sense of direction while driving because of years of using GPS and not having to like learn roads or learn routes. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about entire generations not being able to think critically because they they don't have to. So I'm hoping that's not the timeline we're in, and that's a small percentage. But yeah, if you don't use your brain and you don't use the tools to learn new things, our brain is smart by allowing us to be dumb because it doesn't need to retain things that it knows it doesn't need to retain. So it just won't.
Yeah, I read a study the other day, like you were talking about GPS and stuff like that. I read a study that was like they're studying why taxi drivers and ambulance drivers are the least likely cohorts to get dementia and Alzheimer's. And it's because they learn the maps in their head. Like London taxi drivers specifically, to become a unionized London taxi driver, you have to pass like a legendary exam of memorizing like thousands of streets in London, right? You're not allowed to use GPS for this. And they find that like that sort of learning helps keep the brain healthy. And you have to wonder like how much like Rand's talking about AI making kids dumber and stuff like that. What if it's even worse than that? What if it's like pandemic levels of brain atrophy that these systems will produce? Like this is like one of the weirdest things about AI, not just in gaming but in general, is like if I like they always talk about like the CEO of Anthropic, which is an AI company, was literally talking about the other day like governments aren't prepared for 50% of all jobs to be eliminated by AI. And it's like, why are we pushing ahead with this if that's going to happen? Like, do these corporations think that there'll be anyone left to buy anything or buy their AI if no one's got a job anymore? Like, where's the revenue going to come from? You know, it's not like there'll suddenly be shitloads of new jobs to do. It's such a strange, like, self-destructive thing that the corporate mindset sort of pushes us towards, is this sort of quarter over quarter, this quarterly thinking, you know, and sort of extrapolating from that. It's like, this is why you end up with games like Dragon Age the Valgarn, and this is why you end up with Microsoft's strategy of like, you know, oh, we don't need exclusives anymore. Because increasingly it looks like this is a quarterly thinking process rather than a long-term thinking process. Like the AI is like forging ahead with all the power they're using, all the bandwidth they're using, and all this kind of stuff. And it just doesn't seem like it's setting up society for success in any way, shape, or form. And I think like if the same with gaming, it's like when you open that Pandora's box, whether it's AI or, you know, the microtransactions box that they opened, it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle once you've opened it. And then it's like, you know, people will find if you start treating customers like shit or make them dumber, you know, that has long-term consequences for your business. I think a lot of people these days who this is like one effect I think that the rush towards microtransactions and seasonality and battle passes and all that kind of stuff has had, you know, with these sort of shallow corporate multiplayer experiences. I think like it's created a generation of people who don't care about gaming. They don't really care about gaming because the corporations make it clear that they don't care about you. And I think like the amount of people that don't see gaming as something to love, they just see it as something that is hindering growth, you know. And like, I don't think the industry is, I don't think capitalism, frankly, is designed to accommodate the more longer term thinking and the longer term health of things, which I think is why regulations about some of this stuff is so important. I don't know how you regulate the gaming industry. But I think this is it goes to it falls on your point of that humans are smart enough to make themselves dumb, you know. And I suppose like when we are a finite species, people can be just like, oh well, that's the next guy's problem, right? climate change, that's the next guy's problem. Oh, if AI blows up the entire economy of the world, that's the next guy's problem, right? As long as I make my money, as long as I've got my mansion and my yachts, the rest of it doesn't matter, right? But it affects gaming as well. And, you know, it's like with Dragon Age or whatever else. I'm really mad about Dragon Age, guys. I'm really upset about that game. But I don't know. It's this conversation's getting existential, man.
It's getting very existential. I'll just one like optimistic, positive thing I'll drop at the tail end of this is that, you know, we've seen these kind of shifts happen in music, and we've seen these kind of shifts happen in film, and it hasn't really reduced the quantity or quality of people who love the medium and do everything in their power to put forward new ideas and push the art forward. So I want to believe that, as you touched on, we've seen it a lot in the indie space. Like I feel like we really kind of need to, like, as a community, rally around the idea that, yeah, video games are made by people, and we should rally behind the people making these games. Because if we want gaming to continue to exist in the way that we know and love, that might be the way, that might be the best path forward, is kind of supporting and rallying behind these teams as we look at some players who want to try to figure out ways that they can cut costs, implement AI to take away opportunities from artists who want to express an idea. But Expedition 33 is a great example of people loving, connecting, clicking with a piece of art made by passionate people. And I think, genuinely speaking, even at a lot of the bigger companies, video games are made by people who love video games and want to be there. And so it's definitely tough for some of them as well to, like, kind of have to deal with the directives from above. But I don't want that to dismiss or downplay what they do and the reasons they're there. So I'm optimistic, you know, despite some of my concerns regarding AI and its implementation. And I will just say AI needs legislation implemented immediately. It should have happened 10 years ago, because now everyone's rushing to be first before any sort of legislation can be passed. But yeah, support the people and projects you're passionate about, and they will continue to exist.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately the moral of the story. I mean, the core gamers showed up in droves for Expedition 33. It was truly fantastic to see the love and support that game got, because we've been told by corporations for years and years and years that nobody wanted a turn-based game like this, you know, and that, like, oh, Persona is niche or whatever, and Persona has its legacy fans or whatever, and there was no way, like, there's no way a game could break through unless it was, like, heavily riffing on retro stuff, you know. All the games in this space that blew up was stuff like Sea of Stars, Chained Echoes and stuff like that, but they're all sort of like retro styled and stuff like that, and sort of banking a little bit on that Final Fantasy and classic Dragon Quest nostalgia. And then, like, for Expedition 33 to come along and be like, nah, we're gonna try and approach AAA with this shit, you know, is just, it's such a relief. It's a relief almost that a game like this from a so-called AA studio, sure, they doubtlessly use their connections from Ubisoft to get some solid financial backing and stuff like that. But the idea and the creativity that was potentially held back by layers upon layers of corporate bureaucracy in a bloated company like Ubisoft was ultimately able to sort of push through and thrive and flourish. It's kind of beautiful in a way. It's poetic, a bit like the game itself. But yeah, I don't know. But I do agree. It's like, I don't think, like, CEOs and people like that necessarily want to do a bad job. It's just it's the structure that we've kind of set up for ourselves. I think the issue is, honestly, specifically, not even capitalism. It's like, it's shareholder capitalism and the stock market gambling stuff, all that kind of stuff, the get rich quick mentality that society has created for itself, rather than the sort of, even the idea of distributing wealth is like a dirty word for a lot of people. And I think that's why you see these gaps in creativity. That's why you see these kind of apps like TikTok which prioritize addictiveness to our baser human instincts rather than something that's more fulfilling in the long term. There's no sort of long-term thinking with any of this shit, and it really shows. I think gaming is like an inflection point for a lot of this stuff, because you do get the sort of artistic rebellion in games like Expedition 33, and then you do get your corporate slop like Concord and stuff like that on the other end. But I don't know.
But what if this was the moment of the show where I revealed that I am AI?
Yeah.
Well, this is another thing. It's like I was watching a YouTube channel last night because like one of the things I like to do before bed is scare myself to death by watching like true crime or something like that. And I was watching this. I was watching this YouTube video. I think it was called something like the 15 clearest UFO photographs ever, and it was 45 minutes long and had like 1 million views or something. And I was like, 45 minutes for 15 photographs? This must be a really good video. And I start watching it, and it's just like the narrator's like waffling and waffling and waffling, repeating things and stuff like that. It's like, this has got way loads of padding in. And then it clicked, and I realized, or at least I started thinking, was this narrator AI? And I start like looking through the comments to see if people are asking if it's AI or not. And then like I'm thinking, is the script AI? Yeah. Are the photographs AI? Are they even real photographs? And I'm looking through the descriptions.
What can I trust, man?
Yeah.
What's real?
What's real anymore? I was looking through the description, looking for sources, and I was just like, I'm like, someone who's in the thick of all this stuff, and at that age where I can discern this shit. But if you're a younger person, like a 4-year-old growing up with this shit, you ain't gonna know if it's real, and further over, you ain't even gonna care. And I think schools and all that kind of stuff, they're not prepared for this. Governments aren't prepared for this. Corporations aren't prepared for this. It's all crazy and shit, man. I don't know. But yeah, Expedition 33, fantastic game. I loved playing through that.
Yeah. So enough about fear mongering the future with stuff that may or may not be real. Expedition 33 is pretty good, right?
Anyway, existence may end, but let's talk about the Xbox Game Showcase.
Yeah,
All right?
Expedition 33 is kind of like it sort of hinges on. I mean, well, I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but it's like
no spoilers, Jez.
no spoilers, but it does touch upon some of these kind of themes about like being trapped inside a structure, because the expedition is the 33 is however many dozens of expeditions of various ages are sort of trapped in this yearly cycle of they're trying to break out of, right? So it's almost like in reference to the situation they were in at Ubisoft in a way, and it's that human inspiration which I don't think AI potentially, I hope not, can replicate. But they said like there's a famous meme where a guy was like, I want to bet Elon Musk $100,000 that by 2029 none of these AI things will happen. If any 3 of these things will happen, I will give Elon Musk $100,000. Now Elon Musk didn't take that bet, but if he had, he would have already won $100,000, because like most of the things that the guy said weren't going to happen have happened already before 2029. So maybe AI really does become self-aware, can spawn human ingenuity, and maybe just takes over the world and we all die. But anyway,
think about it, bro. Is that in the future we'll be able to do an Xbox 2 podcast, set it up, and just have AI run the show, and AI Jazz and AI Rand.
No,
and we don't even got to show up.
You'll be able to go for another 100 years.
Yeah,
100 more years of Xbox 2.
We could just feed in every podcast we've ever done, so the AI knows how we speak, and the AI knows our thoughts because our thoughts are on the podcast. And every week we just set the topics we want to discuss, and you set up like, we need this to run for 4 hours, and boom, Xbox 2 continues on, and me and you don't even got to show up. It'll just be AI Rand and AI Jez.
Well, this is the thing. Maybe the Gen Alpha audience wouldn't mind, but I don't think many people from Gen Alpha are actually listening to us.
Sure. But the thing is, if it gets so good and nobody even realizes, then
True that.
you know.
True that.
But anyways, pivoting all the way back to what we were talking about Xbox and stuff. I kind of want to, you talked a little bit about Miles, but I'm going to ask you this. I know I'm going to get like no comment or whatever, but with Xbox transitioning to third-party platform, we've seen, Christopher Dring say he talked to some developers about them expressing their, I don't want to use the right word here, like frustration or the idea of like, well, if Xbox is doing this, why are we even supporting them? So since you're on that side of the fence now, is Xbox changing its strategy, changed your ideas or your company? Well, see, you're not going to be able to answer, but I figured I'd answer it anyways. Has it changed how you feel you would support the Xbox platform in the future?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the question, and I will clarify that I cannot speak on behalf of IllFonic, but generally speaking, developers and publishers are going to go where people are playing, and there's still an audience on Xbox. Like, I know a lot of us kind of want to doomsay about the future and the potential, but if you look at Xbox and say there's like 40 million potential customers to buy this thing, it seems worthwhile to continue to support that. And Xbox, I don't know what their long-term plan is in terms of like the transition, if there is, from traditional consoles to something else. But as long as they have a compelling incentives for developers and an audience of people who want to play on that platform, I think people will continue to support. And there might be examples of devs who have higher expectations or have had poor performance on one platform versus the other. But I think for me, it's hard to undermine millions of people. I think no matter what, that's still an audience worth kind of catering to.
It's a good answer. It's a great answer. We love to hear it. I mean, people are going to want to sell their games to wherever there's an audience. So
give Miles a PR job, man. That was a good
that
was a good response.
He's pretty good with this.
He's pretty good. Yeah. Are you media trained, Miles? You media trained?
I'm a bit of a media professional.
Bit of a media professional in my spare time. But like, on the topic of Xbox and stuff like that, the big news, obviously, in the near term is that we got Xbox Showcase coming up, and I know, I know there's a lot of stuff you want to see from Xbox Rand, but I want to hear more about what Miles wants to see from Xbox.
Well, Miles already got what he wanted. He got the Mana games, so he's already gotten everything he's wanted.
That's right? It. Xbox can shut down at this point.
Whatever. You got my Mana games. I'm good. Thanks, Xbox.
Okay, what I want to see from the Xbox Game Showcase, and one thing I do want to talk about is the lead up to the showcase has been very interesting because obviously we touched on a lot of the multi-platform decisions, but there have been a lot of big things announced by Xbox ahead of this show. We had the Oblivion Remastered Shadow drop. We had the Gears of War Reloaded edition. So there's these big beats that we would have assumed would be part of this show. Obviously, there were rumors.
Gears Reloaded could still be part of the show, though. Like, they can easily have like a trailer attached to Gears E-Day where they're like, and get Gears Reload, pre-order now for Gears Reloaded to get beta access or something if they wanted to do something like that, right? Doesn't preclude it from being there, really.
Metaphor Refantasio, like just kind of casually coming out ahead of this launch. There's all of these specific things that are kind of culminating to this show, which makes me feel like this has the potential to be a stack show where they had to shave some of this stuff off to make room for the other bigger announcements. So obviously, I want to see Everwild. God damn it. Like, it's been a while. It's been a game that people have talked about for a long time. Rare's been supporting Sea of Thieves for a long time. But what was it, 2018 that Everwild was originally announced?
2019, right? The first time, 2019. 2019. Yeah.
So it's been a while. We saw proof of life with State of Decay 3 last year. I'd love to see some more State of Decay 3. But Xbox has laid out a stacked first half of the year. And so I'm really excited to see what that back half looks like. And I think, given their cadence this year with Game Pass, with releases, they're trying to do something every single month. They're trying to have a headline every single month, which is, especially compared to previous years, that is a breakneck pace for really any first-party platform holder. And so I'm hoping I don't know that Fable will be this year, but I would love to see more Fable. I'd love to see State of Decay 3. I'd love to see Everwild. Yes, that's officially that's. But do you think there's a world where we see more gameplay from that, or do they just not talk about it?
I think it's possible, but I'm like 70-30 that it skips this year.
I guess I could see that. I also, on the hardware front, I want to see the Elite 3. Speaking of 2019, did you know that the Xbox Elite 2 was released in 2019?
It's been a while.
Which means it's been 6 years, basically, since we've had a new, premium Xbox controller, that's wild, right? I'm not the only one who thinks that's wild. And if the current speculation about new Xbox hardware in 2027-ish is true, are we really going to wait until 2027 for the Elite 3? We going to wait 8 years? Come on now. Give me that new controller. I love the Elite 2 when it works. It's the greatest controller of all time, but I want to see the newer, better version, and probably $250 controller at this rate.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because the guy you're in a podcast with recently wrote an article about the Elite 3. Mr. Corden himself.
My God.
Yeah, I did.
The one and only Jez Corden. Did you confirm it?
He basically confirmed it and said it's happening.
Nah.
I mean, you sort of did, bro.
Yeah, the Elite.
What I want to know
there is an Elite Series 3 coming. It's nearly done, from what I understand, in testing. I don't know if it's at the showcase though, but it is coming.
No.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, my idea we've seen the leaks of the Sebel controller that's supposed to have haptics, and I feel like if you're doing Elite Series 3, and if you're doing haptics in the future, then you kind of got to wait for that so you can put haptics in your Elite Series 3, unless they've ditched the whole haptic stuff in the first place, which I guess is possible. But it seemed like,
but they could they could do a mid-gen thing with haptics because it's already being supported by, at this point, PlayStation and Nintendo. So there's, they could wait, but I guess they wouldn't necessarily have to wait to support haptics on the platform.
Sorry,
so
give me a minute.
when you talk about the showcase, I'm going to ask you, because in my videos, when I always kind of go through this, I kind of have an idea of what I want to open the show, when I want to close the show, and all those sort of things in between, right? Well, I'll go through and I'll try to predict the whole show. Do you have any idea of what you think would end the show and begin the show? I don't want I'm going to try to predict all 30 games that'll be in there. But I want your show opener and I want your show closer. Disregard the fact that, of course, there's the Outer Worlds 2 Direct, which I feel is because Fable got delayed. I feel Fable was supposed to be the Direct game, and they already signed the deal with IGN to do the IGN first for Outer Worlds 2. And when Fable got delayed, they were like, oh, snap, we want to continue to doing these Directs, but I guess we'll just do Outer Worlds 2. So what do you got? What do you got open in the show? What do you got closing the show?
I feel like Outer Worlds 2 is a middle of the show. Here's the release date. Make sure you tune in to that post-show direct for more
they did that
gameplay.
for Call of Duty and Starfield. Yeah, so
that feels like a good middle of the show. They closed last year with Gears E-Day, so I don't necessarily, because you could speculate that maybe they'll close the show with the release date for Gears E-Day. Maybe it's coming out this year. That's the big kind of surprise is, oh shoot, Gears E-Day is in November or whatever it is. But if they closed the show with it last year, why don't you just start the show with it?
Oh yeah,
Start the show with
E-Day.
Guess what?
I like yeah.
Our show, the Xbox Game Showcase, is going to focus on the games coming in the back half of 2025, and we're excited to start with this and to kick off with the Gears E-Day. Bam! Here's the release date for Gears E-Day.
You want to know something funny, Miles? Is that Jez had actually written that in his article that Gears E-Day was set to release in 2025, and I think he got called out on Twitter, and then he changed it. Little sneak, little change what he said.
What? Who called you out?
I saw people saying Jez Corden hints that Gears of War is coming in 2025.
That was like a typo or something. I was thinking about another game in my head, I think, when I was writing that, because I wrote the article. And then I came in after to write a bit about Gears E-Day, but I think I was thinking of another game or something. I did include a comment on the article that explained what happened. So
yeah,
it wasn't that
people
sneaky.
4K.
People, the people on Twitter were like, Jez Corden hints that it's releasing this year. And then, Jez updated the article being like, releasing in the next calendar year, meaning like, the next full year or whatever, which I don't even think it's releasing in the next. Well, I guess would the next calendar year be like, did that encompass like fall 2026? So sure. But yeah, I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I saw people DM'd it to me and they were like, dude, Jez is saying it's coming this year. And I'm like, it's not.
It's not, bro. It feels like there's gonna be Gears there, a Gears presence of some kind outside of the Reloaded. Because obviously they already announced Reloaded. They already showed what Reloaded's going to be. They already have the release date. So to have that back in the show and nothing else related to Gears would be strange. And maybe they did that because there won't be anything Gears in the show, but I don't know. I feel like E-Day is going to be there in some capacity.
I feel really confident Gears would be there. If it's 2026, that is. If for whatever reason which it would be odd if it wasn't, considering Tom Warren basically since it's been revealed was saying that there was a possibility it was going to release in 2025. And then when the Outer Worlds 2 got the direct tap on the shoulder, like, oh, you're the big game. That kind of basically said out loud, Gears isn't 2026. Because I feel like if it was, Gears E-Day would be the direct game. Because of how big it. I mean, let's be honest. Like, Gears is bigger than Outer Worlds, especially if it was like fully multi-platform, which I expect it is. So,
yeah. So it's interesting to see Outer Worlds 2, because you could argue Outer Worlds 2 probably could benefit from like an extended showing.
The thing is, like, they just had a whole month of IGN firsts, a whole bunch of videos, a whole bunch of developer interviews and stuff. So like my idea for like Gears E-Day is that I'm with you. I think it opens the show. And I don't think we see it at the Dev Direct next year. I think it then ends up at Showcase next year as the direct game. Well, you see, they got so much stuff next year. Fable and Gears and potentially State of Decay 3 and Clockwork Revolution, Forza Horizon 6
the holiday stuff now is kind of
next year's holiday lineup.
Next
year's holiday lineup is looking like Gears E-Day, Fable, Forza Horizon 6, and Modern Warfare 4.
Big four?
I mean, that's what you're looking at. I think.
Xbox
I don't think
so back, baby. Gears, Forza.
Anyways, yeah. So if you got Gears opening, which is a good shout, what do you think's closing then? What is something new? First party, Bethesda, Activision, Xbox, a third party game, perhaps like a Persona 6. What do you think?
See, I think it will be something new.
Okay.
I think it makes sense to do something new, unless because they have leaned into their partners quite a lot for these kind of like big opening and closing moments. My assumption would be something new, unless they're going to be ballsy enough to talk about Elder Scrolls.
Ooh, that's another game Jez had in his
Like
article.
if they have something worth showing or talking about, I could see that being like the closer. Because again, we point to the Oblivion remaster just casually dropping.
Yeah.
It wasn't related to like a anniversary or any key date. It was just like, hey, it's
casually
April.
shadow drop the third best-selling game of the year. Just I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why not? Whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Well, so that makes me feel like, again, if I'm looking at all this through like a marketing lens and like creating these like moments and beats and hype cycles, like it makes sense to get people talking about Elder Scrolls, rekindling their love of Bethesda, and then having like at the show, like, oh damn, here's the next big Bethesda thing. Again, that could be. They could be.
It's like we're on the same wavelength here, Miles. Because I've been predicting that Elder Scrolls 6 was going to close the show for like 2 months at this point.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So,
okay.
I just, and the thing I have is when I'm thinking about this, I was just like, would an Elder Scrolls? Let's just say you're right, I'm right. Elder Scrolls 6 closes the show, right? Which I would imagine if it's there, it's show closing because of how massive the franchise is. I think we'd all agree, right?
Yeah, there's anticipation for the next Elder Scrolls for sure in a big way.
And now maybe if they show it here and then they decide to show it next year, it wouldn't close next year's show. But I mean, we haven't seen this in 7 years, so it's going to close. Would that overshadow Outer Worlds 2? Or any other announcement that they're making right now, because people will be focused on Elder Scrolls 6 and not be focused on the game that's coming out in 2 months? Or do you think would be people just being like, come on, like Outer Worlds 2 is going to be out in 3 months. It's also science fiction. Elder Scrolls is probably 3 or 4 years away and it's fantasy. Like, how could it really overshadow it? You think they think about that at all? Or is that maybe it does overshadow it?
Because we had, like, you could say, like, an Outer Worlds 2 benefits greater from a extended gameplay showcase than, like, a Call of Duty, which I understand why you do that with Call of Duty. It's a huge juggernaut title. You want people to be excited. We also already know a lot of people will be excited regardless, and there is already a lot of marketing machines built around Call of Duty, so it makes sense to get eyeballs on the Outer Worlds 2. I love Obsidian Entertainment. Like, they are one of my favorite modern developers. They do amazing work. So I'm really excited for the Outer Worlds 2. I do wonder if that is their, quote, big, I say air quotes, their biggest game for the back half of 2025. And there is a potential for the conversation to be, overshadowed by Elder Scrolls trailer. But if they just slap like a 2026 or not even a year on the trailer, I don't know that it'll be that detrimental, especially if they can have a strong trailer and release date in the show that says you're playing this soon, because we all assume Call of Duty is October. So I hope they're not trying to bury any of their other games in October.
Usually, if Call of Duty is in October, the following year it's in November. That usually seems to be kind of the thing. So last year's Call of Duty was at the end of October. So I'm sort of expecting this year's Call of Duty to be sometime in November. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. It'll be like either the end of October or that like the first couple. So it's like it'll be in that window range, right?
So it doesn't make sense to put anything else big next to that from your own stable. It's just, it doesn't.
To be fair, I mean, Ninja Gaiden 4 would be. You could easily release Ninja Gaiden 4 at the beginning of October.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe like middle of October, and it probably would be fine, right? With Grand Theft Auto out of the way, you have, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other games being like, oh, we need to release this year, right? We need to make sure we're out, because if we delay, we might run up against Grand Theft Auto, and then who knows if Grand Theft Auto gets delayed again, right? We know Xbox has, at least of right now, 4 games set for the fall. Gears Reloaded, which you mentioned, has a release date at August 29th. Outer Worlds 2 is coming. Ninja Gaiden 4 is coming. And the new Call of Duty game. So in my head, when I'm looking at it, I have Gears at the end of August, and I probably would pencil in Outer Worlds 2 in September. But then you also got to look at the third-party stuff. Good. Like like Borderlands 4 is September 12th. You probably don't want to release around Borderlands 4.
No, you want to
but then
benefit
again-
from the third-party platform sales of the big titles. Makes
Well, you
sense.
also, because like Borderlands 4 could easily overshadow Outer Worlds 2, which is almost the same problem they had with Avowed the beginning of the year when it released, and it was like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a Game of the Year candidate, and it released, you know, a week and a half or 2 weeks before, and then after that it was like, oh, here's Monster Hunter Wilds. So
Yeah.
you know, like you got to be careful. Marathon's also coming out in the end of September, and it's like, you know, will that game? I have a feeling that game's getting delayed, so I don't think it's coming out. So like, you probably would be like, all right, maybe a week after Borderlands 4, Outer Worlds 2 comes out. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know, but and maybe Borderlands 4 suffers because of the $8 price point. Like, so quick aside here, we'll come back to this about the release dates. How do you feel about the Nintendo starting the $80 price point surge, Microsoft following up with saying they're going to do it too? We have EA saying that they currently don't have any plans for it. We got basically Randy Pitchford hinting and outright saying that if you're a fan, you'll find a way to pay it, but not really confirming $80. How do you feel about games jumping up in price twice this generation?
Twice. We saw the 70 and then now the $80
At least
pop.
for some games. Yeah.
And I've always kind of been an advocate for more, I guess, tiered pricing, because I feel like regardless of the budget, a lot of games felt that they had to launch AA or AAA. They had to launch at $60 because that was the standard of quality. Your game needed to be $60 regardless of its budget, so you could say that it was worth the price of admission. And so we just got a bunch of flat $60 games for a really long time. And there were exceptions. Not every single game did this, but for a long time, that was just the standard. And it felt very strange because you played games and you could tell games had drastically different budgets and scales in terms of quality, but those weren't really reflected in the price points. So if publishers, like we've seen it with Xbox, with like kind of South of Midnight and some of their other titles, they're more open to that scale, which I was really happy to see. And I think that's really important when it comes to experimenting with new ideas and new IPs, is you need those lower price points. $80, like, I don't want to pay more for anything. None of us do.
Nobody does.
That's the reality. So I'm not going to sit here and
Definitely
say,
not.
hell yeah, I'm stoked to pay $80 for Mario Kart World. I hope that those price tags are factored into the overall budget. And I hope those price points are dictated by what's best for the game and the team. I've bought deluxe editions for well over $100 many, many times. So I'm not going to say like, oh, $80 is outrageous. I would never
But those
spend
also
that.
give you like the 5-day early access and maybe some DLC that comes
Yeah,
along with it too. So you're actually getting more for your money, but now you creep up to that, and now it's like the default price is that, and if you want the extra stuff now, it's $150 or whatever the pricing would be. So
yeah, and so it's a rough pill to swallow. I mean, I'm kind of starting to think Grand Theft Auto might be $100 at this rate. Like
yeah, well, I don't know if you
I'm
heard.
starting to be concerned about that.
With me and Jez talked about this, and I brought up a scenario of the Grand Theft Auto pricing to Jez to see what he would think. Because if there's one game that can get away with it, especially after that trailer, right? Because people have been talking about, oh, Grand Theft Auto is going to cost more, and people were like, right, like whatever, and then people saw the trailer and they're like, I'll pay whatever. Oh my god, it looks like the greatest
You
thing.
name the price,
Right? So I said, what if they did this? Because you got like Marathon and some like Arc Raiders multiplayer only games.
Hey guys, I'll be
Elden
right
Ring
back.
Night. Okay, Elden Ring Night Rain. You know, coming out at like $40 for a multiplayer experience and stuff. So I was like, okay, you got Grand Theft Auto, the most anticipated game in forever. Whenever it does launch, they will claim it as the biggest media launch of all time, right? Absolutely.
I'm
So I was
anticipating
thinking-
to be the fastest selling game ever. by
Fastest selling
far.
game ever, the biggest media launch ever, including movies and music. It'll be the biggest thing ever, right? I was like, well, what could they sell for? What if they decided, you know what? Here's the campaign. It's $80. Here's the multiplayer. It's also a separate $80. But you can buy the Grand Theft Auto 6 Complete Edition for $150.
Okay, so that's. I don't think they're going to be that aggressive.
I mean, because if you look at the way they currently sell GTA, they currently sell GTA 6 and Red Dead 2 on the PlayStation Xbox store in that manner. There's a listing for just this campaign, a listing for just the multiplayer, and then a version that combines them all.
You know what? I mean, I could definitely see them being like separate purchases or like add-ons. Like you can buy the base game at $80. The online multiplayer is like a $20 or $40 add-on. Like I could see them going that route, and that kind of, they could do the $100 version where you get both. I could definitely see that being the reality. I don't think they try to exceed $100 for like the base entry point. Like
but
excluding special edition.
If it's $80 for the campaign and $80 and then $80 for the multiplayer, it's not exceeding $100 for the base, right?
Two distinct experiences.
I'm just saying, if there's a game that could get away with it, it's GTA 6, right?
Yeah. Then it would be a staggering amount of. They'll make money no matter what, and people will buy it no matter what the price point is. But $80 each, that's no way.
What if it was 80-40? What if it was 80 campaign, 40 multiplayer?
I could see that. 80 campaign, 40 multiplayer, or you can get them both for $100.
I still think they'd probably do both for 120 and then probably give you a shark card on top of it, right?
Yeah, sweeten the pot. But yeah,
then
we have to ask, like, if that game truly cost $1 billion to make, if that's a true figure,
the supposed cost,
do we get to say that? Can we really say that $100 isn't worth it?
I mean,
it's going to be dependent on the customer. Obviously, everyone's tastes are different, but if you're spending $1 billion to make a game, I think you can charge $100 for that game. But that's just me.
Is the crew? Would the crew be willing to all spend $100 for it?
The squad?
Is the squad going to be like, yeah, we're there?
I have some of my core squads like, bro, I'm over Grand Theft Auto, man. I don't care about Grand Theft Auto. I don't know that they'll be humming that same tune when it drops, though.
Yeah,
like I'll be there. If it's $100, I'll throw down. Like I'm not even the biggest GTA fan, but it's always like a cultural moment, and I always love to check out the tech. So I'll be there if it's $100. Would I want it to be cheaper? Yes, of course. But if your scenario of it being $150 is a reality, then I'm second guessing the purchase.
We've also seen, like, when you look at all these different games, the Assassin's Creed or the Ubisoft games usually has a version that's like around 120. The Ultimate Edition. When you look at all the different versions
every year, and
people buy them, like you look at the PlayStation Store, like the most expensive version is usually the one that's topping the charts. Like Forza Horizon 5 just released on PlayStation, and they sold the regular $60 version and then the premium version for $100. So there are games that breach the $100 barrier, but in that sense, it's like it comes with 5-day early access, and it comes with like maybe the expansions. Starfield was $100 if I remember correctly, and that came with 5-day early access and an expansion, which wasn't any good. But still, it felt like you were getting something for the extra money. And now it's just like, well, no, this is just the base price. But
yeah, you want the Ultimate Edition, now it's $199.99.
Yeah. And as since you're now a developer, now you're also got to worry about your own game or your own games. And if you're planning on launching something around GTA 6, I would imagine that's something you keep an eye on because we've seen many articles about the GTA stuff throwing devs and publishers and like chaos because it's like well, we should release, but we shouldn't release because GTA might stay, and then like how everybody's just watching GTA because they know they can't release anything around it, but because they don't know when it's coming, they're like paralyzed with fear of making a
Committing to a
choice. Yeah, committing to something because you just don't know, right? Like even right now, I'm sure there's plenty of people who have a game set for early 2026 that are probably like freaking out because they're like, well, we could release, but then what if GTA doesn't delay? And it's like, should we announce the release because we think GTA might delay? And then you have games in the fall that are probably like, "Ooh, we're safe for now." But it's like, are you really though? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no one on Earth wants to release a game the same month as Grand Theft Auto. I think that's going to be a really tough ask. There will be games that just do and have to because of timing and budgets and all that fun business related stuff, but yeah, no, if anyone had a choice, they would just vacate the proximity of that release date by a few weeks on either side because, yeah, it will be a cultural moment. Not only is it going to be the game everyone's playing and talking about and dominating the conversations, but if it is a big budget, and there will be a lot of people who haven't upgraded to Xbox or PlayStation buying new consoles, it's also going to eat up a lot of money around that time as well. So there's going to be less money for people to spend on the other games that come out. So it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah. So I think we had that little sidetrack there. So, going back to the release dates for Xbox's games or whatever, you have, I think Outer Worlds 2 is September. And then I was thinking like Ninja Gaiden 4 is sometime in October. You have Ghost of Yotai the beginning of October, so now that Xbox is sort of multi-platform, I don't know if you'd want to release Ninja Gaiden 4 that close to Ghost of Yotai. I mean, granted, they're different games, but they're also like, they're going to be heavily action games as well. So maybe that's like beginning of like middle of October, and then you hit like Modern War or whatever this year's Call of Duty in November, and you hit it like that. And it I guess you could say it does feel like Xbox is missing a game for the fall, but then it was like, oh yeah, Fable was supposed to release, but Fable got delayed.
I feel like they're still gonna have a fairly stacked back half. And again,
I mean, 4 games is quite a lot. Sometimes you'd only get like 1 or 2 games from Xbox all year. And this year they're dropping like 10.
Strong.
Yeah, I mean, you got Tony Hawk in July.
Dude, I mean, they're gonna Tony Hawk 3 and 4. We're so back, dude.
I mean, you basically gonna have a game every month. You're gonna have July, Tony Hawk, August, Gears, and I think you have Outer Worlds 2 September, Ninja Gaiden October, and Call of Duty in November. Not to mention other things like maybe the Indiana Jones DLC, Starfield DLC. I'm sure there'll be new seasons of Sea of Thieves or Diablo and Overwatch and all that sort of stuff that Xbox all hands like their hands in the pie of just content, and they have all these things now. But it's okay. So what about Halo? Does Halo show up this year? Because if you have Elder Scrolls 6 closing, where does Halo show up? And if you have Gears opening, is Halo just really just a middle of the pack entry? Or are we waiting until next year?
What if it's like because they said they were experimenting with with Unreal 5 last year.
Unreal 5, they announced that in October. The name change of the studio to Halo Studios. We've seen the screenshots of the Unreal Engine 5 stuff. The rumors that they're remaking Halo CE. Next year is the 25th anniversary, not only of Xbox, but of Halo itself. So... But I'm just judging off of what you said, right? You got Gears opening and you got Elder Scrolls closing. That means Halo's somewhere in the middle.
If it is the remake, let's say hypothetically, Halo's showing up. They want to do something for the 25th anniversary of Halo. They could show off the Combat Evolved remake, because really a lot of teams right now are like learning Unreal 5. They're using these remakes as a way to get into that engine and understand the tool sets in like a familiar, comfortable space. So it makes sense that the team's been in there. They've been like staging things. They've been getting familiar with Unreal 5. Relatively, again, I'm not trying to downplay any time. It's relatively quicker to remake a game in Unreal 5. So there is a world where we see combat. My thing is, like, do they show Combat Evolved for the 25th anniversary but not release it? They just like they confirm it's a thing that's happening, and then they say like, here's a limited edition controller for the 25th anniversary. Like, because I feel like they're gonna do a controller at the very least. They're gonna do some sort of like piece of hardware to commemorate the 25th anniversary.
And you would think Halo's still big enough brand where maybe you can even do like a piece of hardware. I mean, they did have the Halo Infinite Xbox Series X,
if they have a show
launch,
where it is like Gears is back, Halo's back, and they attach a cool piece of like limited edition hardware to that, like, I think that's a cool moment for the Xbox brand and legacy, and especially for longtime fans. My only question in that scenario is, what's the timing for the release of the Combat Evolved anniversary? Is that going to be another surprise shadow drop? Like, guess what? This is done. This is done. Surprise. Or do they say, hey, this is coming and we don't know when it's coming, but it's a thing?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess there's sort of the twofold thing there of like, is Halo releasing a game next year as part of the 25th anniversary, or are they going to announce the game next year as part of the 25th anniversary? Right? So it's like,
exactly. That
you are you releasing it or are you announcing it? And I could see either or. Maybe they're just not ready. I mean, I don't know. Like, how long have they been working on the Halo stuff in Unreal Engine 5 anyways? How much of it is a true remake, right? Are we looking at like a true remake in the sense of Elder Scrolls Oblivion, where it's just like the graphics are redone and maybe they touch up some stuff? Or are we looking at like Resident Evil 2 style remake where some stuff is significantly changed in ways, right? It's like, I guess we don't know any of that other than seeing some of the screenshots and that slow video. But I mean, what do you think is Halo needs to do anyways to like recapture itself? I mean, I think you probably would say going multi-platform is the right decision, as much as it would hurt Xbox fans to lose its core identity of like, this is Halo and this has always meant Xbox. But as I've always said, there's what's right for the platform and there's what's right for the game. And Halo's not as big as it once was, so maybe it does need like the more exposure and releasing on other platforms. And some people would say you can't release Halo on PlayStation and Nintendo. But maybe that's what the franchise needs for its next iteration, right?
Here's what they do. Here's how they
Miles got the plan. Who knows?
The Halo hype back. Again, they ripped the Band-Aid off. We all know Xbox has no red lines for where its games are going. We have the Switch 2 launching this year. You bring the Halo Master Chief Collection to PlayStation and Switch. You say, hey, it's coming. You get that out there. There's a lot of buzz about what Nintendo's big like holiday game is for like the November period. They have said they've said nothing about. They've shown off all these updates and upgrades to all the big Switch games. Like a lot of them are getting upgraded. They've said not a peep, not a word, nothing about one of the best-selling games on the platform, which is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Baby, you see where I'm going? You see where I'm getting at here?
Yeah, I see where you're getting at. Yeah, I think I'm picking up what you're putting down here.
This summer, you even let Nintendo have the Halo Master Chief Collection trailer. You let them have that at a Direct, and then at the end of the Nintendo Direct, they say, we're doing new fighters passes for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And then they announce that Master Chief is coming to Smash, dude.
Oh,
They start that cycle going. They get people talking about, oh, and then you have all these people going back to Halo, remembering why they love Halo on other platforms who've been, just kind of ignoring it or moved on. And then you feed into that hype. You have that moment with Master Chief in Smash, and then you have the reveal of the Combat Evolved remake. You get everyone back in, everyone looking at Halo again, and then you use that foundation to kind of like build what's next. So that's, if it was me and I could make all the calls and everyone was on board, that's exactly what it would look like.
I mean, hey, Master Chief and Smash would be that'd be something. That definitely would be something. Although I used to think also about like Halo Master Chief Collection on Switch or PlayStation, but I think the idea of them doing just a Gears Reloaded and just Gears 1 sort of tells us how they're going to approach this with Halo. Because I'm not, at this point, not expecting Halo Master Chief Collection to basically go to the platforms. I expect them to piecemeal the games. Like why sell Halo
drip feed?
Because like think about it. Why sell Halo Master Chief Collection for $50 when you can sell Halo CE Remake for $60, and then eventually do Halo 2, and then do you know what I mean? Like look at Gears Reloaded.
Hold on. What if they do both of those things? What if they bring Master Chief Collection?
I suppose they could
do exactly what Nintendo does and say, here are these kind of old versions of these things. You can play them. They still play well. And then they use that as like a moment to be like, but here's the new hotness. Here's this game, but it actually looks good.
I guess I would say, why wouldn't they have done that? I mean, I guess I'd say, why didn't they do that with Gears then? And then you would say, well,
why
Gears
didn't they do that
wasn't
with Gears?
Well, I think it's more like because they're going to sell you each individual game. Because it's probably more profitable that way, where they can sell you, here's Gears Reloaded for 40 instead of here's 3 Gears games for 60. And it's like, oh, we're remaking Halo, so we can charge more. Plus, it's Halo, and Halo's always been bigger than Gears. So while Gears gets the cheaper price, Halo gets the premium price because we value this franchise more. Hopefully, Jez is listening.
Yeah, sorry, I just published my exclusive, so we'll talk about that in a moment.
Exclusive? Oh my god, breaking news.
Exclusive. But finish what you're talking about. I don't want to interrupt. You guys are having such a lovely conversation. I feel really guilty that I haven't been here, but it's just so annoying that all this happened at once, right? But you'll understand why in a moment when I post about it. When we talk about it, I mean.
About the Halo, like, because I sort of feel like I mean, I could be wrong, but it looks like if you're looking what they did with Gears, then they're going to follow the same formula for Halo, and they're just going to be like, here's Halo CE Remake, and we're going to sell it for $60. Why sell the Master Chief Collection for $50 when we can just sell the individual games and make more money? That's what it seems like to me. But Jez, your article, it's been out. You've been writing this the whole time. What's it about?
What's happening?
What's going on?
Is it going to make us happy?
Yes and no. So the Xbox handheld, codename Pembroke, has been sidelined, not cancelled, I'm told, but it has been sidelined, which means that the previous timeline, which suggested it could launch with the next Xbox Series X, which I understand to be codenamed either Melrose or Cartigan. Not entirely sure which codename it's using right now, to be honest. But the Series X2 is unaffected. So the Series X2, full steam ahead. Actually, the quote I was given was full steam ahead. And that's going to be fine and dandy and all that kind of stuff. And also, they're still invested in wanting to build their own handheld. But it seems that, and I'm speculating on this bit, it seems that the drama surrounding SteamOS beating Windows on performance and battery life has made them realize they need to prioritize. And it seems like the teams that were working on the Xbox handheld are now working on fixing Windows for partner devices like Project Kennen, which seems to have been expanded in scope. So yeah, that was the exclusive I've been working on for the last hour or so. I was just trying to nail down some of the other details because I wanted to. I didn't want to say it was cancelled if it was fully cancelled, and it does seem like it's not fully cancelled. But yeah, I don't know. But that's what it
hurts.
was. Yeah, I knew.
That hurts, just.
Yeah, I knew you wouldn't be happy about it because you are like me, a part of the handheld faithful. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I'd rather them get everything right, and I think it'd be really hard for them to try and nail everything. So I'm not entirely surprised about this. But yeah, that was the exclusive. Would you buy an Xbox handheld, Miles? Is that something that is in your purview? Is that something you really want to see Microsoft do?
Yes, absolutely. I've been asking and demanding the dedicated handheld for a long time, and I think it's one of those situations where we've seen examples like the Steam Deck come out and the ROG Ally, and as you kind of touched on, a lot of the problems with like the Windows specific devices is that the OS itself is not that nice to use. For, to put it politely, it's especially compared to Steam Deck, especially compared to Switch, where they have these like de facto UIs and operating systems that are designed to do this thing, and they do it incredibly well. So if you've used a Steam Deck or you've used a Switch and you go to these Windows devices, even though they are more powerful, on paper they have higher specs, the overall experience, in my opinion, is notably worse. So you're paying a lot more money for a worse experience. And that can't be the reality. And that's why a lot of these aren't selling like millions of units, because that's a tough pill to swallow. Pay $1,000 for an experience that's pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
So yeah, I think Xbox has the potential, especially because they've been building in like the lower spec SKU with the Series S. They have their Play Anywhere approach. They're trying to have this unified ecosystem where you can play on any device you want. And I think realistically that approach is probably slowing down their investments in that category because they can just lean on partners to do that, which Asus is doing that, and they're going to continue to do that. But I hope that the sideline doesn't mean it's not happening, because I think it has potential to have some good brand association and brand growth opportunities for that audience, because there is an audience, and we're going to see that audience turn up in droves when the Switch 2 launches.
Yeah. I didn't catch a lot of your conversation around the showcase, but did you guys talk about whether or not Microsoft will show off Switch games at their own showcase?
I mean, I assume if there's an announcement of a game that might be heading to the Switch, they'll have the logo there. I don't know if, like, I guess the idea is like, will Forza Horizon 5 be at the showcase simply so they can say it's coming to the Switch? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, I mean, because it feels like so much of the gaming discourse right now revolves around handhelds. At least like we're sort of, building these companion devices, which I think people can double down on. Could the Nintendo Switch 2 be a companion device for Xbox gamers? Because I know Microsoft's philosophy is like everything's an Xbox now. But obviously, platform holders, like, they will throw barriers to that. It's not like the Nintendo Switch wants you to buy the games outright. It doesn't want you to use Game Pass. Like, Steam wants you to buy the games. It doesn't want you to use Game Pass. Even though, like, Steam now has EA Play, and it has GeForce Now, which has PC Game Pass baked into it, which is weird. So I just wonder, like, could Microsoft partner with Nintendo more deeply on some of that stuff? I got a DM today, which was like, yeah, Xbox games on other platforms are great, but I can't get Xbox achievements for them and stuff like that. There's not a lot of it's like everything's an Xbox, but you don't really get
the full experience. You don't get the Xbox experience.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of Xbox on other platforms, really.
it's a very segmented. If this
The
truly is the
industry,
vision,
the
it's very
ecosystem
segmented right now.
is fractured. Yeah, the ecosystem's fractured.
I
Mhm.
could see a scenario where they show off like a new season of Sea of Thieves and then announce like that's coming to Switch too. Like if they have something new to reveal, I could see them just slapping
Yeah.
the Switch 2 logo
Well,
or saying, "Oh,
Sea of Thieves is always in the show, so that definitely could be. Oh, new season's coming, and boom, like Switch 2, right? You know.
Yeah,
and there's been a lot of people in that community asking for a Switch version, so that would, that'd probably be a big splash, especially to coincide with the new console launch. And
that is true.
but that's Nintendo doesn't want you to associate Xbox with the Switch, really. Like
True
they
that.
don't. This is an Xbox. They don't. No, this is a Nintendo Switch. This is not. This is not an Xbox. You can buy Xbox games on here and play them, but this is not an Xbox.
Hmm.
And how long until we start seeing Nintendo and PlayStation use that as a marketing tagline?
This is not an Xbox. Yeah.
This is
is-
not an Xbox.
This is not an Xbox. Yeah. It's so. I just wish we like could see the future, man. Honestly. Like there's so many things that are up in the air, whether it's like Xbox, whether it's AI, whether it's cloud gaming, all this kind of stuff. It's just there's so much uncertainty now. I remember like in the 360 gen, we knew what our gaming devices were, we knew what they did, we knew what to expect, all that kind of stuff. Now we're just like, there was this goal. Like I don't like to nostalgize gaming too much because there is tons of stuff that's new that's great too. But it felt like there was this time in the 360 era where you could expect things would only get better, And now we're sort of in this world where it's not guaranteed that things are going to get better, Like even with the Nintendo Switch, the people are like trying to find where the gotcha is, And I saw people were complaining that Nintendo can brick your system remotely, stop you from using it remotely, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, Xbox and PlayStation been able to do that for years, kind of thing. Should we even let them do? We don't really own anything anymore. I know, getting existential again. I just want to give a shout out, by the way, to Scarcely Relevant, if you guys missed it, but Scarcely Relevant sent 5 gift memberships, so
Ooh,
thank
nice.
you so much. And also Silas with the membership note. Close with the Scalebound Revival. Yes.
The
Did you guys talk about Scalebound?
No, why would we want to talk about Scalebound?
Might as well talk about Phantom Dust, yes.
Yeah. I mean, are you saying Scalebound's coming back?
Are you alluding?
Is this what are you alluding to?
Kamiya on stage?
He's gone dark again. He
Hang
just
on a
drops the
second.
scale.
Sorry, I just
he
need to
drops
do
the
something.
Scalebound bomb.
I think I got
and
the code
disappears.
name for Pembroke wrong.
Oh,
Well, you spelled it wrong.
I don't know. Maybe it's not wrong.
Well, I
don't
mean,
know.
that's the thing with putting out information, bro.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough.
You better
What's up,
double
Jez?
check.
Is Scalebound happening? Is that what you're saying?
Nah, the code name was wrong, but everything else is right.
Oh, well, what's the code name then?
I don't know.
Oh, so now you got the code name wrong. So interesting. Maybe the whole thing's wrong, Jez.
Nah.
Whoa, dude, they're
Nah, the
coming
whole-
for you.
Nah, the code name.
Tom Warren's gonna put out a tweet basically. What the hell's Pembrose? What's a Pembrose?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So what's Scalebound? What news you dropping about that? You don't bring it up for no reason. People want to know. We want to know.
Someone mentioned it in chat.
Oh, someone always mentions it in chat, though. So, it's a running joke about Scalebound. Is it one of those things that's going to happen? I don't know. What do you what about Summer Games Fest, Miles? What do you want to see from the Keister?
Resident Evil 9.
Yes,
baby.
let's go. Baby. It's about
Leon's
time.
Back, dude.
It's about time. Is Leon supposed to be the protagonist of 9?
We have not seen Leon in the modern era. You know, they've been doing all the remakes with Leon, 2 and 4,
right?
But we have not seen Leon in the 7, 8, and quote unquote 9 trilogy. So Leon's got to be back. Leon's got to be the lead.
What about
right?
Chris? What about Chris though?
What if it comes full circle and they end up doing Resident Evil 6? Gang's all here. Chris is here. Leon's here. Claire's here. The gang's all here. People are riding motorcycles and blocking machine gun bullets on the helicopter, dude.
We're doing this again where we almost killed the whole franchise because of how bad the game was.
We're running it back. We're running. The funniest thing is that game sold so freaking well. Like it
it's Resident Evil.
Yes. But it did make them reevaluate some things. So I don't think it's going to be on that level. But
isn't Resident Evil 7? Didn't it end up passing it? Resident Evil 7 was like the biggest seller for them.
I think 2 remake now is like up there.
Yeah, maybe with 2 and stuff. But so you want to see some Resident Evil at the Keister? Okay. Anything else? Anything else?
I'm trying to think because he dropped that huge graphic with like the
the huge
partners.
graphic.
So there's going to be a lot of stuff there. We also have the Silk Song meme at this point. Like, is Xbox getting Silk Song? Is Nintendo getting Silk Song? Is the Keister getting Silk Song? Is anyone getting Silk Song that weekend?
I mean, that's the eternal question. Silk Song.
I want it. I want to see it somewhere that weekend.
I mean, I know you do, and I know I would. So it's just anytime people expect it, anytime people would expect it, it would. I don't even know what I was saying. What was I saying? What was I saying, Miles? I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about Silk Song and people.
And when people expect it to show up, it doesn't show up. So maybe if we all just kind of go in there with the idea of like, there's no way it's here, there's no way it's here, there's no way it's here. Repeat that after me. The mantra: it's not here, it's not here, it's not here.
Not here. It's not
and when
here.
finally everybody's like, it won't be here, then it will be there.
Boom.
So
what about you, Rand? What do you want to see from the key Meister?
I don't know. Resident Evil 9 would be a great one. I'm just not really sure.
That's my number one that I think could be there, and I would be the most stoked to see there. But
so I just don't know whatever else he would have to show. I mean, I would love another look at Ghost of Yotai.
Ghost of Hentai.
Or so I definitely would like to see that again. I mean, I don't even really need to see more of Ghost of Yotai. It's tough because sometimes new announcements you're gonna have no clue about, and old announcements. Yeah, I don't know. Like with especially with Summer Games Fest, I kind of just chill, and it's just like, all right, let me see what you got, Keeley. But Summer Games Fest never as good as the Game Awards. Like last Game Awards was like an all timer. But Summer Games Fest, I feel,
Summer
is
Game
like
Fest
never
is usually
really...
like updates on like we'll probably get release dates for stuff we've seen previously, like Judas or some of those other games that have kind of been at Summer Game Fest in the past. Toxic Commando, like these games we know exist. Turok. Like I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of like updates and release dates for those sort of titles. Turok, baby. But yeah, in terms of like, but he always has like one or two big things, and I think if he got a big thing, it would be Resident Evil 9, unless somehow, some miraculous way, Xbox got Resident Evil, which I don't know.
Doubtful.
Maybe
they've never had that. It's always been with PlayStation. No. I mean, PlayStation do a state of play at some point in June, so
there's a rumor. I guess it could be there.
Yeah, it could be there. What about the Final Fantasy games? Coming
Bro,
to
if
Xbox.
they don't happen this year, I'm
16
done.
and remake. Yeah, we're gonna pitchforks to Jazz because he mentioned that in his article. He basically said he could take it to the bank.
Because now at this point, with them being confirmed to Switch 2, they are essentially saying, yeah, we're going to bring them literally anywhere but Xbox.
Yeah. Phil went up on stage and had that triple handshake so he could get Dragon Quest 1 HD 2D remake.
I mean, Dragon Quest was cool.
You know?
Like, I was stoked for that. I mean, I was stoked to see, obviously, all the mana stuff. So, like, there's been improvements. But we all know Final Fantasy is their biggest IP. And so it feels bad for Xbox players to not have one of the biggest franchises in all of gaming on the platform. Whether it's your jam or not, it does feel kind of bad. And they don't have a good answer because it's everywhere else. So it's not a good look, Rand. So
now that it's everywhere else, yeah, it's kind of like,
because it used to be like, oh, okay, PlayStation has exclusivity, but they're just, they said, all right, you can do the PC thing, whatever. But now that it's doing the Switch thing, it's like, okay, what is the deal? Is it Nintendo and PlayStation in cahoots to destroy Xbox? Is that a conspiracy, Rand?
There's plenty of conspiracy theories. Are they true though?
But I think Xbox will have a lot of third-party presence at their show, so I could see them doing like the Atlas is here, Square Enix is here, like they invested a lot in Square Enix with like the Visions of Mana and like that as well. So
I mean,
hope they
wasn't basically the Persona 4 remake confirmed to be real yesterday, considering a bunch of the old voice actors were like, I'm not part of the Persona 4 remake?
Yeah, a bunch of people broke some NDAs, or somebody got word to these voice actors that they weren't going to be in it, and they just said, we're going scorched earth.
Man, I really apologize to you guys about all this, like the dipping in and out. It's such a nightmare doing like an exclusive report and a leak and stuff like that, because it's like, is all the information right? And then you got to do PR with Microsoft, and then all this kind of stuff, and then I've got to like let people know internally at Future, and I've also got to like get it sent out to the notifications team, the newsletter team, and all that kind of stuff. So it's like for this to have happened live while doing the show, I really apologize to you guys and also everyone listening. But
breaking.
But I think, yeah, breaking news, Mr. Exclusive, right? But I think we're done now. So yeah, we don't know the code name of Pembroke, which is strange because I had like a bunch of the information's correct. I've verified that, but a load of people have said to me that the code name was Pembroke, but now someone else is telling me that was not the code name. It's weird. I've got like multiple code names for this shit. I've got Melrose, I've got Cartigan, and I've also got Pembroke, and I have no idea which is which. One of them is the Xbox Series X successor. So like, and I thought Melrose was the Xbox Series X successor, but now even that's unclear. But and then don't even get me started on the controller code names, because some of those are like code names, and then they have like little numbers after them and shit like that. Microsoft is like a spaghetti of code names, but yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Codename Central, all over the place.
Codename Central, man. It's a bloody nightmare. But
I guess we could ask Miles: Is Ilphonic going to be at the Xbox showcase, or the Keegs? They got anything to show? Surprise! We're doing the Blob.
Surprise! Expect a shadow drop. Confirmed.
2v5 asymmetric multiplayer game where you play as the Blob and you go around blobbing people and killing them. Oh, you remember the Blob movie, the remake of the Blob?
Yeah, I do remember the Blob. The Blob. A dream project for me would be Chud. Have you seen that? cannibalistic
have not,
humanoid underground
but
dwellers?
I do know what it is. I do. What about the
man.
Ghoulies? What if you could do the
The
Ghoulies?
Ghoulies, another classic. What do we got? We got
Yeah.
Critters in that vein.
Critters, yeah.
Puppet Master.
Wait, what,
I think
what
there
are we
is
talking
actually.
about right now? Old school horror game?
Oh,
80s horror
Rand was asking
killers.
for shadow dropping something at the
Yeah,
end.
I asked
Tremors,
Miles
man.
if.
The Tremors.
Ooh, there we go,
Tremors.
Miles.
Let me call up my
Tremors.
boy Kevin Bacon. See what I can do.
You could have people running up on the ground while the Tremors are underneath. Yeah, that's totally different style gameplay.
Let's see
It's
how
almost like
crispy
it's-
Kevin Bacon's feeling, dude.
what other iconic 80 franchises could you do?
As a horror nerd, I could rattle off just infinite, dude.
You could do
Return of the Living Dead.
I kind of
Yeah.
want
I could do
Chucky, man.
Chucky. Oh, yeah,
Chucky.
Chucky's in
The
Dead by
Chucker-
Daylight now.
Chucky actor
That's true.
died yesterday.
Oh,
I
did he?
saw that.
Yeah, Chucky actor died.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Not the voice actor, but the guy who actually played the physical Chucky in Child's Play.
Yeah. Oh man, so many horror movies. What about Miles? I want to know if you've seen this one. Have you seen Zombievers?
I have actually seen Zombievers, yes.
Rand, have you seen
Zombiever? I've
Have
heard
you
of
seen
Zombievers, but I've never seen Zombievers.
So we I got a funny story about Zombievers. A good friend of mine. We were with her 12-year-old son at the time. And you know where this is going, right? And I was with my friend, a 12-year-old son, and like her fella, and we were just hanging around watching TV, having a few beers, whatever. And we thought about watching a horror movie. So he's like, coming up to be an adolescent and stuff like that. So like, what's a dumb horror movie we can watch on Netflix? Zombievers. Oh, it's about zombie beavers. That looks like a fun, potentially child-friendly horror movie. It's just zombie puppets, right? Beaver puppets that are zombies. That can't possibly be bad for children to watch, right? Right? Wrong. It's oh man, it is like it's like a classic 80s exploitation horror movie with like gratuitous, ridiculous violence and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, so everyone was traumatized. So that was fun. But Zombievers, what a classic. There needs to be a Zombievers game. You could get Moon Studios to make it.
Yeah. I'll run that up the chain, see what I can do about it. Zombievers.
Zombievers. Nerves of the Ledger says game based on 1998 Dark City. Never seen that.
Dark
about it.
City.
I like
yeah.
that Dark City. I like that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies. He can tune. Love Dark City.
Dark City. Yeah.
Or what about this? What if we played drug dealers that sold the drugs to the people in Requiem for a Dream?
Whoa, that sounds like a
Mm.
dark game.
The only movie I've ever
that'd
seen
be
that
horribly dark.
that said is a pure masterpiece, 10 out of 10 that I never want to see again ever in my life. You
There
know?
are movies. Yeah, that's one for me. Hereditary, I wouldn't say is one
Hereditary?
I want to see again, but
I wouldn't say that's a 10 out of
takes
10,
a
but I
toll.
never want to see it again.
Oh yeah. I am
Nah.
totally with you on Hereditary. I do not want to see that again. I really enjoyed it
That
though.
was
I thought it
heavy.
was very good. It was just very, very heavy. Yeah. Anyway,
What else you want to talk about?
what else do we want to talk about? Well, we've been. It's funny because it feels like I've only just got here because I've
Is-
been working the whole last time, unfortunately. But we've had Miles captive for
Yeah.
over 2 hours now. So maybe now is a good time to let Miles go back to the killer clowns from outer space and smash some innocent teenagers to death with various
Yeah.
clown weapons.
Yeah.
So Killer Clowns from Outer Space is, I believe, on Game Pass, right? Isn't it, Miles?
No, I don't think
We're
it
doing
is.
Depending on when you are listening to this or hearing, it's free play days this weekend. So
Oh,
if you're
yeah,
a Game
that's
Pass
why I'm
sub, you
seeing
can play
that.
it for free. and then it's like 70% off during all of
Yeah.
that. It's not in Game Pass, but
right,
if you
'cause-
have Game Pass, you can play it.
So I loaded it up when on the Microsoft Store, and it says included in Game Pass. So I guess that's the free play days with Game Pass, right? And also it's
Free
12.
play days.
Yeah, it's $12 right now, which is an insanely good deal. You know, if you want horror games, play with your friends in the vein of, you know, Dead by Daylight, things like that.
Yeah, if you ever played like Friday the 13th, the game, it's that sort of energy. It's like you're creating your own mini horror movies. So it's a very social game. Like I love playing it in game chat, the proximity based game chat, and like having those moments. But yeah, it's goofy. It's the only game that exists where you can use cotton candy ray guns and wrap humans in cocoons. So we can say that at least.
It looks really cool. I'm watching the gameplay now. So we'll have a link to that in the description. But thank you so much, Miles, for coming back on the show. And sorry it was a bit of a chaotic episode, but you know, them's the breaks, you know, with work and stuff. I'm sure you all know. But we'll be back on Friday with the Xbox 2 regular show. Also, follow Miles at Miles DOMPIER on Twitter and things like that.
Yep.
We include Miles' socials there. Miles is a cool dude, cool hombre, metalhead and horror aficionado. A man after my own heart. So definitely give Miles a follow.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, dudes. It's honestly just nice to have an excuse to ramble about games with you two guys. You know, we used to do it somewhat regularly, so I'll take any excuse excuse I can get.
Yeah, man, we love getting you back on the show, and you know, and also Rand's pretty good as well. He doesn't use social media, but you know, Rand's alright sometimes.
Here and there.
He likes
we got Xbox 2 tomorrow. We're gonna have to do our Xbox Showcase prediction show tomorrow.
Yeah, we sure do, Rand. And Rand's no doubt gonna drop his quote unquote predictions that.
What do you mean? I've been dropping my predictions for months.
Yeah, that all mysteriously become absolutely 100% factually true. Very strange. But
that never happened.
Yeah, what's that? But anyways, that's going to be the show. Thanks everyone for listening. You can get it early on Patreon, and if you're listening on Spotify later, we appreciate you. There's currently a discount running on Patreon, 20% off to celebrate the Xbox June showcase. So that'll run through June. Get 20% off, get guaranteed Q&As every week, and also ad-free audio if you want to avoid the ads on Spotify. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.
Later. Peace.